Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted in person and as a courtesy via remote means in accordance with applicable law. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public and board members, the meeting hearing will not be suspended or terminated if tech problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless required by law. This meeting will be recorded by the local scene, formerly known as pac-tv. Members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so by viewing the Duxbury government access channels, Verizon 39 or Comcast 9. Viewers can visit https:// local scene-media/Duxbury/. For information about Duxbury programming, including streaming and watching replays on Duxbury YouTube. This is a lot of information here about something that has changed. So we're going to get some better clarification before our next meeting for that. That being said, we are proceeding with tonight's meeting. We have, hey, Rainey, how are you, buddy?
Good, how are you?
Living the dream. All right. That's. Yeah,
We keep saying that, we're gonna finally believe it.
I know, I'm gonna finally believe it too. All right. Announcements, if any, don't have any, minutes. We do have minutes that we haven't approved.
Did you distribute them to the
No,
group?
I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen them? Okay, never mind. We will have minutes for our next meeting. I thought they got sent out to everybody and we sent those out.
No, I sent them to you.
Oh, and then I sent back what I thought, and then we didn't do anything after that. Okay.
And then I updated it and sent it back to you.
Okay, so we're playing tag on that. We will get the minutes that I do have. It'll be fun. Brenda is laughing. Could somebody give him a Heimlich? Because he seems to be having some problem with that. We do not have anything, but let me tell you something. They were spiffy minutes. Which we will discuss later because I do not think doing minutes is the finance director's purview, and she was kind enough to take care of that for us. So moving on, budget process. Mary, do you have something you'd like to be telling us?
So so tonight what we're going to do is go over some of the FY26 budget requests for the departments that are listed on the agenda. And if I can start, and let me say that we're using tonight as a test case. Because this process this year is very different than in years past, because we've talked about preparing two budgets. So the reason that I chose these particular departments that we're going to discuss tonight is because these departments fall under my domain. For me to prepare them and present them to you, and I'm ready to do that. And I felt that it would be much easier for all of us to work collaboratively to define our process using me as the test case before we start to bring our departments in here.
Perfect kitty.
I believe that was a brilliant suggestion, Matt.
There you go. And then I can communicate to the department heads any sort of procedural issues or suggestions that we decide upon tonight. So hopefully it won't be too bumpy, but we'll navigate our way through these waters together.
Now, is this in ClearGov?
So let me,
Oh, I'm sorry.
if I may,
Yes.
what I did is belt and suspenders. So the data that we're gonna go over tonight, I did enter into ClearGov. I understand that some folks have either not seen the system or are having some challenges with the system. So my suspenders is that I handed out a paper copy of everything that we're gonna go through tonight, which I am also gonna display up on the screen so that if this recording works, folks at home will have it as well. So that was a long answer to your question, Betsy, and the short answer was yes.
Sure,
So
no, not a word.
if I can draw your attention to the packet, what we're gonna do is explain a few things and then we'll start to talk about some of these budgets.
Okay,
So the first page was the agenda. The second page was just a little cheat sheet that I created for myself. It looks like this. These are the departments that we're gonna talk about this evening, and I have a letter right here next to each one of those. That letter corresponds in the lower right-hand corner to the pages of your packet. So for A, we're gonna look at the next page in your packet, which is a schedule labeled page A or exhibit A, if you will.
Usually, I was just a question.
No,
Okay, yep,
nope, not at all.
clearly not.
And my husband knows to buy lots of Starbucks coffee for my house. So,
There you go.
God bless him.
Yeah.
All right, so on this little eye chart here, there are several departments consolidated onto this one chart, and we're gonna go through each one of them. I will say that I did have an opportunity to meet with Al on the 19th of September, 18th or 19th of September. We did go through all of these, so I may defer to you or feel free to jump in and add some context as we talk about each of these, if that's okay with you.
Sure, thank you.
Perfect. All right, so the first department that we're gonna talk about is town meeting, which is Department 113. And it's the first category listed on Schedule A. And you have some color coding, I believe, on, no, you don't have color coding. All right, the color coding is up here on the screen. Trying to isolate. Oh, it's a little bit of a delay. Trying to isolate the different options that we're talking about here. So I have FY23 budgets, FY24 budget to actuals, FY25 is the year that we're in right now, which is the peach colored columns. And then the yellow column is budget option number 1, and the blue column up here is budget option number 2. So in the budget request for FY26 for town meeting, option number 1, I am recommending that we level fund the budget. What that does not do is it does not take into consideration any vendor price increases or any increased volume that we may have for printing copies of materials to be prepared for town meeting. So in budget option number 2, I am proposing that we do consider for budget option number 2, vendor price increases of going from $2,200 for printing to $2,400, and for advertising from $300 to $400. Does everybody follow that chart?
Yeah, this is not for special, this is just for annual.
No, this
But-
is,
Mary,
yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry, JR. I have a question. The FY25 budget was $2,200. How come you put the F26 budget in at 2,200, and why wasn't that increased by 2.5%?
So not every budget, as you're gonna see in the next one as well. And also, if you think back to our conversation, so this is us dealing with logistics, right? So if we think about our conversations from the last time that we got together and we talked about the budget process, we also want to recognize that not every department may need to go up to the 2.5%.
This was the Amy question.
Correct.
Mhm.
And there are cases where it's not necessarily needed. And so
Okay.
that, the assumption is, when we look at option number 1, we should keep in mind that we want to ask ourselves whether this department does need to go up to the 2.5% increase. And in this particular case, I'm recommending that if we had to, we'd have to make it work, right? So if we couldn't send all of our materials out to be printed, then that would result in, and we had to do additional printing if we exceeded that budget, is that we would then have to use staff hours in-house to do all of that preparation, which would
Thank you.
then, of course,
Is there gonna be some place that we can codify what the 2.5% wouldn't be?
so, to that point, I started to think about this. I'm gonna pull up another spreadsheet here. Bear with me. 'Cause
My thought being that option 2 might be within the 2.5%.
option 2%. So hang on, let me catch up with you and let me see if I'm gonna answer your question. So I'm going to try to share one more.
I love your spreadsheet so much.
Let's go to this one. Okay, so here's a different spreadsheet, and can I make this bigger? So here's what I'm thinking. This
Could you
spreadsheet
pop
here.
that one little thing bigger or not?
Gonna make it- Yeah,
Okay, perfect.
okay, how's that?
Yep.
JR, can you see that?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that we're gonna need to have a tracker of some sort as we go through this process, right?
Right.
And so this is essentially, well, I'll call it my omnibus budget. The omnibus budget that we actually bring forward to town meeting does not have all the individual line items, right? It has salaries and expenses. So this is actually more detail, but I'm gonna call it the full omnibus budget.
Mhm.
And so this right now represents the FY 25 budget, the year that we're in. We've applied Article 4, so now we get to the revised budget. So I'm gonna hide these two columns. Because this right now is really where we're at, is the FY 25 budget. So as departments prepare their option 1 and option 2. We will do, or what I will do, is put those numbers into here, which is our tracker. And that's where we can start to capture notes of the consequences. And over here, what I'm doing is I'm simply calculating the increase or decrease that is being requested in these two different options. Does that make sense? Okay.
Is
And
there
then,
gonna be a column that indicates what 2.5 would be?
per department,
Yeah.
so I already have that in a separate spreadsheet
I have no doubt about that.
that I can email out to you. It's a 1-pager, which is
Yeah.
nice.
That'd be good.
So that you can see the upper limit.
Yeah.
Of what that would be. Yes, I do not have it here, but I could certainly add it.
Well, I mean, that would be the only way we could track at the end of the day that we stayed under the 2.5, even,
Well, so we're gonna know at
Pluses
a
and
bottom
minuses.
line, so what will
Yeah.
happen is I've gotta finish formatting this, cause I was trying to figure out a way,
Yep,
how do
yep.
we manage this process, right? And it goes back to, we're gonna work out a procedure tonight. Here, we're gonna have a bottom line, and
Mhm.
we're gonna be tracking the bottom line, so we will know, after each set of recommendations, where we're gonna fall,
Okay,
okay?
okay.
Sean?
Apologies if you answered this last week, but for eyes on this tracker, will this be eventually uploaded into ClearGov for both options? Or,
I mean, I can add an attachment to ClearGov, but what happens with ClearGov is it takes a snapshot, so it's not dynamic.
sure,
So as we're here and I'm making updates, then what it would require is me to go back and then add another attachment.
Okay.
And update the attachment. What would probably, I don't even know if I could do this because it would need to be a dynamic link, is that, I mean, we could put it on the website, on the finance committee page of the website, but again, it's not a dynamic link to my app, my folders that, here on the server. So I'm gonna have to figure out a way of how we can communicate that.
I don't. Okay,
And it could just. If it's just a snapshot and then that snapshot changes, it could cause. Kerfuffle within people that are, because sometimes in
you might
ClearGov,
have some.
it's public information, sometimes in ClearGov.
Right,
It's just the people that are working on that particular budget's information.
sure.
So, I think the only thing worse than not being transparent is giving people so much information that you've blizzarded them. So that there's no way for them to actually know the correct answer. They only have a series of about 10 different answers
Sure, and I was asking more for the sake of our
for our
our
deliberation.
conversations around,
Yep.
like, are we expecting then? If we hold the cadence of weekly meetings, do we get a weekly updated snapshot of what those options look like as we continue forward towards?
Yeah, I could certainly do that,
Is
sending
that
us-
burdensome or is that something you're doing anyway?
Well, no, to send something out, I mean, I'm not sending something out to you guys every single week, but I certainly can. Or
Or just for
on
the sake, I
Friday.
mean, if
Okay.
the conversation pops up, then
Yeah.
just knowing that.
Yeah,
Okay,
we'll have that updated.
yep, and so. Let me flip over to this one. So Betsy, here's your totals right here. These are by department. This is the upper limit of the 2.5%. So we can, oh, no, hang on a second.
so that's
This
the,
is the upper limit right here. So by department.
blow it up a little bit so I can't. I'm blind. Or join the meeting.
This right here.
Okay. Okay,
Okay, so this is the FY 25 budget. This would be 2.5% increase. That's the upper limit that you were talking about. So this
right,
is-
so as we go on and we have a level 1 and level 2, then we can add those 2 columns so we can see where we are within that
You
frame.
can add whatever you guys want.
Do you guys follow where I'm
Yeah.
going with this? So if we have this and we know what the upper level is, and we've decided that 2,500 does it. Right, in level 1, we don't have to do the math, but we'll be able to see very clearly where we are in that range of available funds. Based on the parameters that the selectmen have given us. Which, wait a minute, I like, but maybe nobody else cares.
Wait a minute.
What? So the parameters are that we were going to do level funded plus 2.5, right? And then level, and the second choice would be what they actually need. So if indeed we are not doing a blanket 2.5 increase to every department, which we are not. Then if we have that last spreadsheet that Mary has, and then we have the recommended level 1 and level 2. We'll be able to look and see where it falls within the funds that we determined were available in level 1. So, and on the case of town meeting, if you had 2,200 and you recommended 2,200 again, the available funds would have been 2,200 plus 2.5%. So it would have been something higher than 2,200. And you'll just be able to see where you've fallen within this bandwidth of numbers that we have been given to work with. And then level 2, if it's 2,500, then you're gonna know, oh, so on that particular one, it's outside of that range.
Outside of 2.5.
Yeah. Yeah,
Great.
it's just,
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
nothing
if
other
you
than
don't
a
12%,
snapshot in time, so we know
Yeah,
where we
sure.
are in this, where we are in the process for each individual department.
Betsy, why would you need to know that when, in this, if it's like, it shows you that you're at 12%.
I want to know what it is on the basis of the entire budget. Maybe I'm being an
This is
ass,
what
and
Chuck
if I
is
am,
saying.
then that's
Betsy, if
fine.
you
Well,
look
I
up
just
here.
think you're drilling down too far.
This is what Chuck is talking about.
Yeah, you're.
I'm giving you
got
the
numbers
percent
here already,
increase.
where they are. It's not at 2,
Right,
we're at 0 or 12.
right. I guess I was just looking for the dollar amount. But I could be being too granular, which is absolutely one of my gifts.
I'm just trying to understand what the,
Why don't we just take back everything that I said, because I've caused a lot of problems here, and if I have a question.
Just send out that worksheet and people can have it if they
Yeah.
need it.
What you wanted
Yeah,
to know was,
there's-
what you wanted
yeah.
to know was the city.
Yeah.
Betsy can have it.
We go over.
Have
Yeah,
fun
you-
with it.
yeah.
That's fine. I'm happy to send all of that out. That's.
But I think that I'm being too granular, I think, for general consensus. Mary, forgive me. Okay, keep
All right.
going.
All right, so what we'll do, let's try to go through 2 departments and then we'll stop and evaluate where we're at. How's that sound?
Am I allowed to ask a question about the town meeting budget?
Sure.
Since that's the budget we were talking about. The electronic balloting falling, is that in a separate article still? Or I thought we moved that into operating,
We have not yet moved that one into operating.
so it's still.
Yeah, that's a good segue for something else we're gonna talk about.
Alright.
That one is still an article.
Okay,
Hang on.
I was just wondering if this was implying you were gonna,
Nope, so this,
in a
this,
cost cutting move, eliminate it,
this
No.
is simply.
and it's near and dear to my heart.
This is simply the budget that's used for all of the printing expenses. Think about
Right,
all the materials we have to put together, right?
Mhm.
And the advertising that we have to do, and all of that, just the logistics.
Great, okay.
okay, so we're going up on option 2, so option 1 is the 2.5.
No, option
No.
1 is 0.
Zero.
See how it's
So option 1 is 0, there's no change.
for option 1, and then option 2 is 9.09%.
Okay, on option 2.
Just on that first line, Betsy.
Yeah,
On the
exactly
first
right.
Saying 12.
12%.
But what I'm just trying to talk my way through it. So the option 2 is the actual, what is it that's gonna cost to really. Real number, right, to really run this joint. Okay, joint being colloquial, obviously, okay.
If there's a price increase.
again, we're preparing a budget, right? And this budget is for FY 26, which is, 18 months from now.
Yep.
And
It is not unrealistic to consider the fact that there would be an increase in that pricing,
there
right?
you go.
Okay,
Excellent.
town meeting postage, town meeting advertising, we all get what it is.
Yes,
And we know postage is going up, so anyway, that's fine. Or do we pay for postage?
We don't mail anything out anymore.
Yeah,
it's all electronic.
yeah. All right, perfect.
Okay, so then. The next department is the moderator. And the moderator has an established budget of $40. The proposal is to level fund it under both options. So there is no increase under option 1 and there is no increase under option 2.
The extra happy can buy lunch.
The recommendation is to leave it level funded at $40. That makes sense?
Yep.
All right, great. All right, so now let's talk about another one, which is the finance committee. So this is our budget for not only the membership dues to the ATFC, which I did send out an email to all of you folks about, they do hold an annual meeting. We pay a membership on behalf of the town that, what that does is it makes us, the town of Duxbury, an active member of that association. Which means that any one of you can join and participate in their meetings, whether they're online or they're in person. Some of those meetings do have registration fees associated with it. This budget does not have funding in here for those registration fees. And historically, nobody's ever actually attended them. If you want to, and people are interested in attending, and we want to modify this budget to include those registration fees, and that's a topic of conversation. But my recommendation for this budget is, historically speaking, nobody's attended them, so I'm not including registration fees in here. But I am including the membership fee of $220.
It doesn't cost us anything if we were going to Mass Municipal Association, right?
To the MMA meeting in January.
Well,
it
that does
definitely
cost money, but I'm just saying to have access to their information.
To have access to, so the MMA has a website and they have a wealth of information out there. And
Yeah.
what they have started to do is they host meetings and trainings and seminars. And they have been recording them and making those recordings available. So they've got a big library of all kinds of things out there. When they do conduct a meeting in person, and especially their annual conference in January, there are registration fees associated with those programs.
But the sub meetings for finance committees and all that goes with that, we don't have to pay to participate or hear those.
I'm not saying definitively, you don't have to pay, it depends on the type of thing.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Just an FYI for you, Mary. I'm registered for an MMA meeting called First Amendment Audits,
Sure,
and that's on October 22nd. I didn't see a registration
There's-
fee.
yeah, there's no fee for that, that's a standard one they've
And
been
if
doing.
there was, I'd pay it.
There you go. Al's gonna balance our budget for us.
Option 3 is out. Level 3, all right, make a column.
Just a question
Perfect,
on
thank you, Al.
the salaries and wages
Yep.
Can't wait till we get to the schools, Al.
for budget and actual, but then is that what the intermittent and seasonal is on?
Yeah, so I'm gonna touch upon that. So what happened is, last year in the FY 24 budget, we recognized that we no longer had anybody available to, attend meetings, to operate the Zoom, to follow up with the recordings, prepare agendas, post agendas, take notes, take minutes, the whole 9 yards. So what we did is, we have a position that is an intermittent and seasonal position, so it's not a full-time position of the town. And it's the administrative assistant to the finance committee, so we hired a person, Linda, who is filling that role. The salary and wage line is used for full-time and part-time staff. And for intermittent and seasonal, that's where we record the wages for those folks that are temporary and coming up. And so what happened is, we first booked it under the salaries line, but it really belongs under intermittent and seasonal.
Okay.
Is she still working?
So,
Let's see, do we have someone in that position or not?
so, Linda has had some scheduling conflicts and had some, projects at work that she needed to attend to. And she said that she would become available after the end of September, so at the beginning of October.
Okay.
Good news.
Okay, so for this budget, I am proposing that for option one, let me get my head back on straight here. There we go. So for option one, under the salaries line, you will see that I increased that salary line by the 2.5%. And I kept the dues and memberships level funded. The reason I increased that is, we have to cover any additional meetings or additional hours for note taking and meeting prep. It is becoming, or has become very labor intensive, to prepare all the materials and get ready for these meetings. So I feel like we need some additional funding here to cover those costs. So option one is increasing by 2.5%. And option two is also increasing that salary line by 2.5%.
Okay.
Okay, does everybody follow that one?
Yep.
Fabulous.
Sorry, 2.5 or 2%?
You got 2%.
What did I do? Did I do 2%?
Yeah, you did.
I did 2%, my bad. Thank you. Okay. The next one is celebrations, and so.
So is it really 2.5?
No, we'll just leave it the way it is.
Okay, fine.
We'll make it work.
Thank you.
Celebrations. So this is the segue, friend, of your question a moment ago. There are a couple of things that this town traditionally, votes as separate articles, and yet they are recurring items, and essentially, part of our operation. Number one is the electronic balloting to some degree. And number two is the celebrations account for the 4th of July festivities. And what has, with celebrations in particular, some years are funded through taxation and some years have been funded with free cash. It is an item that this town has historically supported, and we know that is going to be part of our operation. So what I'm proposing is that we add a new department into the omnibus budget called celebrations for this expenditure. And I am proposing to keep the expenditure level funded at $25,000, which is what it has been for the last several years. My understanding, and so this, by keeping it level funded, it sort of goes against one of the conversations we've been having with lots of other departments, which is vendor price increases for, putting on this, the parade. However, this is only one of the funding sources that is used for the 4th of July festivities. There's also fundraising and other sources. And so what I'm proposing by level funding it is, even if there are vendor price increases, we're going to expect that those other funding sources will absorb those
This
increases.
is our contribution.
Exactly.
So who then is the department head, if you will? Does this fall then to you and Rainey, or does this fall to Nancy, or
Well, there's a committee.
who's the person?
There's a
4th of July
4th of July.
parade committee.
Right,
They
right,
also
but I'm
handle-
just saying
it's
from
for
the
two
town, if
functions.
it's,
It's no different than we have line items in here for the local historic district. If they have a budget and they have a committee, it's no different.
I sign all the contracts for the 4th of July parade
so basically it falls to you, which it has anyway.
Yeah.
Okay,
for years.
It's just, this is simply a mechanism to not have it as a separate article and to make.
no,
sure
I
it's part
totally
of-
agree with that,
So I wanted
Where
to
does
get
the
some
buck
feedback,
stop,
'cause
right?
Yeah,
it's
it's
just
smarter and more
change.
efficient. It's smarter and more efficient. to
Okay.
have an article.
Maybe we'll eliminate one article to vote on. Yes, that would be great.
yeah, we're there.
Try to streamline everything.
One less item.
No, I'm with you, that's great.
Okay. All right. So now we're gonna get into some of these other line items that require a little bit more information. So I'm gonna go back to my cheat sheet and cross-reference that.
Well, not contributory, they passed away, right?
So I'm getting to that. So sheet D in your packet. is for the contributory. Now, when it comes to pensions, we had historically had two lines funded in our budget, non-contrib and contributory. The non-contrib, you're correct, Betsy, we no longer need that going forward in from FY 26 on. That was a pension being paid to one person in the community, and that person has since passed away. So that line item is going to be removed from the budget. The second line is our pension assessment from the Plymouth County Retirement System. And if you're on page D, let me get down here.
That's a 6.5 now.
Mhm. Yes.
It's a sheet that looks like this.
Got it.
Okay. So the pension, the FY 26 pension assessment from Plymouth County has not been released yet. It typically comes out later in the year, so I'll be refining this number once we know what the actual assessment is. So for budgetary purposes, I am projecting that the assessment is going to be about 6.9 million. So we're gonna start at the top of the sheet up here. And what I'm doing is I am using a 5-year rolling average for calculating that increase over the $6.3 million assessment for FY 25. To start, Plymouth County offers to all of its members an early payment discount. And so once the assessments have been issued, you guys are all familiar with the early payment discount? Okay, all right, so we budget the discounted number because we take advantage of that. So what I'm doing is I'm using a 5-year rolling average of the previous 5 fiscal years that you can see to the left of FY 26, calculating the new assessment, the resulting discount, if you will. And that's all resulting in a 9.6% increase in the assessment. And then if you scroll down where I've got my arrow, what I want to highlight for you is that that assessment is funded by a couple of different sources. The largest, of course, is the general fund. But then the water enterprise and now the rock enterprise also contribute because some of the employees covered there in that pension work in those enterprise funds. So the general fund's impact is $6.5 million for a pension assessment. Okay,
And the rest come from enterprise, so we're budgeting the higher number, but we're not spending it out of the levy.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said we're budgeting the higher number,
Correct.
but we're not, but that number is not coming out of the levy.
So
All of it.
not all of it. So
Yeah.
what will happen is when we prepare all 3 budgets, right? So we vote a general fund budget at town meeting. We also vote a water enterprise budget. So in their budget will be their $248,000 assessment.
And then the rock will be the same.
Exactly.
Right, okay. So when you're calculating what were the increase, if you will, are you calculating the same parameters around the increase, whether it comes from an enterprise fund or the levy?
So again, the calculation is done irrespective of the funding sources
Okay.
at the top.
Fine, that's all,
Yeah,
That's based on the history of it.
and again, using sort of a 5-year rolling
Yeah,
average.
okay, great, thank you.
This is what Plymouth, the top line of the 6.9 is what we're expecting to see from Plymouth with our discount, blah, 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 right?
Correct,
And then the funding sources are below.
correct,
And this is the same number that in 32 then will have a dramatic change.
correct.
Yeah.
So in your packet, what Betsy is referring to, right behind the sheet in your packet, I've included for you guys a copy of the minutes from the April meeting. I think it's April 30th of 2024. Where Plymouth County Retirement Board took a vote because took a vote to extend the funding schedule from 2029 to 2031. They had originally anticipated that our unfunded pension obligation was going to be fully funded by FY 29, and then based on performance, and based on the outstanding liability for all of Plymouth County, the board convened, had a discussion and voted to extend that funding schedule out an additional 2 years. So when I originally anticipated that we would have a windfall in our levy capacity in FY '29, that was quickly deflated. And that now will no longer come to fruition until FY '32.
Keep your hand down.
Does everybody understand that?
Yes.
That number is going to be significant, as in like half of this roughly? So it will be at that point in time, if you're looking at this as it grows out and it's almost $10 million in 30, and that could be a $5 million shift.
So we're not following up.
But it's not gonna happen now, may never happen when you think about municipal government and county government, but potentially that will be something that we will be able to use in the future. Okay,
All right, so any questions on the pension assessment?
nope,
Nope. Okay, we are cruising.
RIP non-contributory.
And, okay, so then the next one, I'm gonna get to, let me get back to my chart at the beginning if I could.
I love your chart.
Which chart are you looking at now?
This one, page A.
So we did town meeting, moderator, finance,
Reserve fund.
reserve fund, we did not do.
All right, so let's talk about the reserve fund, and I suspect
We
this
did
is gonna be a
celebration.
lively discussion. So our reserve fund right now is at $180,000. And you'll see that in option one, I am proposing to reduce that to 100,000.
Ooh,
And in option number two, I am proposing to increase it to 200,000. And let me start with option two. I'm proposing to increase it to 200,000, because as our budget grows and our organization gets more complex and we are trying to address things as opposed to kicking the can.
Mhm.
You've seen that I have brought more reserve fund requests before this board, in lieu of not dealing with something until the next fiscal year, right? And so I want to make sure that as an organization, we have the financial flexibility to respond to unanticipated situations. So I would like us to continue to look at the reserve fund and incrementally increase that as our budget grows. And so I would prefer and request and recommend option number two. However, if you look at, and we did not focus on this, but if you look at the department that we just talked about, which is the retirement assessment right here on this chart, you'll see that that retirement assessment went up 9.96%.
Mhm.
Well above the 2.5% guardrails that we've been talking about.
Mhm.
The problem is that the pension assessment is a fixed cost.
Mhm.
It is not negotiable. And it is not something that we can delay, defer, or cut in any way. So we know right off the bat that that increase and on the order of magnitude, it's sizable. It's an increase of $600,000. And we know that that is going to put pressure on every other line item, and that not every other line item is going to be able to increase 2.5%. So we're gonna need to find places where we reduce existing budgets in order to accommodate the increases in our fixed costs.
So just to, so you understand, this is why I wanted to see those two extra columns, to see what the 2.5 increase would have been and the level, the second one would have been, to kind of pick up on ones that weren't growing as much or ones that were toppling over the top, which this would be one.
So interesting.
But that's just how I
If
look at
if
it.
we have our option two, right, if our option two is closer to the real number to operate, we would not have the need for that increase in the reserve fund because we would have it in our budgets.
Yeah,
Well,
I agree with her. It's illogical that option one is reduced to only 100 from a previous 180. If option one gets approved and we're stuck with that, we're gonna need that money more than we're gonna need it if we get option B.
I completely agree with you, but if we adopt option one across the board, we know that we're making sacrifices, right? We knew out of the gate when we talked about preparing it, that there were gonna be some pretty radical and insignificant consequences. And this is potentially one of them.
I would wanna do, if we got option one, make it 300,000 as opposed to that, just so that, because we know we're gonna need it. To, as opposed, we're gonna need it.
So if I could try to respond to Kathleen's question, so Kathleen's question was this. If at the end of the day, we all agree that the option two budget is what we need to bring forward to town meeting. Then does that mean that we don't have as much reliance on the reserve fund because all of the departments will have had their appropriate level of funding? And although it sounds like a logical question, my answer to it is no, because the reserve fund is used for unanticipated situations. So we're preparing a budget based on anticipated situations, right? Anticipated service volumes, anticipated vendor price increases. Well, what we don't budget for is a snowstorm that topples a tree down and takes out a couple of cars or something along those lines that's not covered by insurance.
Should we?
It also doesn't cover other emergencies that may happen during the year. And if you look at like all of the things that he brought forward to you for reserve fund, we had a boat from the harbor master whose engine failed. We had, if I'm trying to remember off
But
the
if,
top.
but
of
if
my head.
we are budgeting to what we believe is an accurate amount, there is then room to maneuver within those budgets. If we're doing a budget that we know is going to be inadequate, or we know is not going to meet what we anticipate to be actual costs, and we don't have a reserve fund, we cannot operate a line item in deficit. What do we do?
That we can,
Special.
you'd have to do a town meeting, we cannot operate that way. And this
Yeah.
is, I'm highlighting the consequence. And I know you're back to, why wouldn't option two have sufficient funding for every scenario? And my response to you
Well,
is.
no, I'm not fighting with you on option two, but I'm fighting with you on option one.
I'm not fighting,
Specifically on the funding level? Oh, that's
Yeah.
great, because I don't like this funding level.
I know that. I would say, fine,
it's not logical to me.
I understand, yes, it is logical that if you have a bigger budget, whatever, you need to have a reserve that's kind of commensurate with what. If things cost more and you've got an unanticipated expense, that unanticipated expense will probably be larger.
Excuse me, but an unanticipated expense, which you just described, an engine failing on a boat and not paying Randy's dry cleaning bill are two different scenarios,
Right,
right? That is not, Randy's dry cleaning bill is not an unanticipated expense. So I'm suggesting that we should have a true up of what is indeed an unanticipated expense, right? And that should be followed and tracked as a true reserve expenditure, as opposed to perhaps things that end up as a reserve request that really are more operational in nature.
I'm not following that at all, so.
No, I'm not
Randy's-
either.
Randy's dry cleaning bill,
She's just
Okay,
using that as an an
I'm
example.
saying, that I don't.
and she are
I'm not
calling
sure.
it like an unpaid bill, right?
Yeah, so
So an unpaid bill does not get budgeted. That has to go to town meeting. If it's something from a previous fiscal year.
No, but she's saying that if we know that we're under budgeting. And now we're moving something that should be an operational expense.
Yep.
That if we really are anticipating into reserve. Which is not the focus, and I'm saying, I understand where you're coming from, but. I believe that if we budget to level one. There will be a bigger opportunity for unanticipated expenses. We're not budgeting to cover operating and budget, but the chances of us having unanticipated expenses increases, and I would say that level one should be a bigger number than level two, even though level two needs to increase as well.
And I
Did
would,
that make any sense to
Yes,
you?
I would-
I understand, yeah.
I would agree with that train of thought wholeheartedly. Except that at the end of the day, we have to prepare
Fine, we
a
have to find
balanced budget.
Yeah,
Right.
so if we take the money, if we add the money to that, we have to take. in order to
Somebody
get to
else, yeah, something else.
2.2.5%, it has to be cut somewhere else.
Yes, exactly right. I just disagree that in this particular case, that this is where you take it from, because I know that if we end up on level one, we are going to be faced with multiple unanticipated events, because we have just cut it.
The problem with this is this actually becomes not a matter of numbers, it's philosophy.
I'm sorry, speak up. Al.
This is not such. This is really not wrapped up in the numbers. What this is wrapped up in is the approach for this budget process, two budgets,
Mhm.
right? I have no dispute with what anybody has said so far on the number levels. But imagine this. If you take the strict definition of unexpected, unanticipated, and use the examples that Mary provided, something like a storm or a catastrophe,
Right,
flooding or something from the, that we had on Snug Harbor, et cetera. I mean, those things aren't anticipated. So this is part of a philosophy that says to all the department heads in this town, all right, we're gonna tighten our belts. So how do we tighten our belts? Now, the first thing I shot out at Mary when we met about this is I said, oh, wait a second, that looks kind of strange. You're going from 180 to 100,000. Well, let's talk about that. What's been the pattern? So we've got the numbers here laid out for the past few years. And I started to think about it. And what you nailed me with is to say, well, you can't really anticipate the unanticipated. But you can't say to people that are doing their department budgets where this number is going to have an effect. In some cases, maybe a material effect. So if we'd like to have as finance committee, $300,000 in that line, then, and it's not gonna be 100, then 200 has to come from somewhere
but,
to make this budget balanced.
so I think the key thing is that unanticipated, right?
That's correct.
So you can't cut unanticipated. If we are doing a level one budget, it is going to be by necessity with some concrete cuts. So you will be able to tie it back
Right.
to,
So my
something.
point here is, this is in front of us.
Excuse me, can I ask a question
yeah,
that I kind of forget? I should know the answer, but I don't. What if we run out of money? What do we have to do if we run out of money in the reserve fund?
Go to a special town.
we have to go to
meeting.
a special town meeting for
And
10.
exactly. So what does it cost to go to a special town meeting?
15.
8 to 10.
All right, so it costs 10 grand. All
But
right.
my point is, we're only talking about 80 grand or 50 grand or whatever number instead of the severe cut to 100. And we could save that hassle of going to a special town meeting if we run over.
Right, and I don't think you can cut something you can't anticipate. If we're
So
gonna make.
I would vote to stick with the 180.
Okay. I wanted to go up 100 grand to 280 or to 300, but I may be being crazy. But at least stick with the 180.
No, but this is,
Gonna be hard.
well, what goes through my head too is that, and I'm kind of going back to kind of our facilities discussion we're gonna have on Thursday, right? Unanticipated expenses. An air conditioning, unit,
Whatever, yeah.
right? And what I'm suggesting is that there may be things that are floating into unanticipated expenses that should have been in the operating budget or planned for as part of some kind of strategic plan, or in this case, maintenance and replacement.
Right, and that's level
Right.
2, not level 1.
Let me give you another example.
But you see what,
Yes, I do.
where my head's at?
Yep.
Okay.
Let me give you another example, if I could, of the use of the reserve fund. So one of the reserve fund requests that I brought before you guys was either for police or fire, I can't remember which, for about $60,000 for overtime. So whatever scenarios or events happen in town that cause those departments to have massive recalls and provide additional services. Like, those types of events are completely
Absolutely.
unanticipated.
Absolutely.
Right.
Right, and I'm not saying that there aren't legitimate, unanticipated expenses, and this is what we use them for, right? But I'm also suggesting that there are things that may happen that are unexpected due to other factors that may have prevented the
Such
use
as
of it.
what?
I'm just thinking of, maybe a facility, issue. Or
So we brought very few facility issues, because what we end up doing with those is.
Robbing Peter to play Paul.
and should they be? I'm trying to get the fund, the reserve fund, right? Ensuring that we are using that, and this is obviously under your purview and Randy's purview. That fund is used for unanticipated expenses, right? And that I'm in agreement with the fact that it should probably go up and not go down. Given
I don't
our
disagree.
history, right? And do we have a, now that you can maybe trend line an unanticipated expense? But I'm thinking that
Yeah, do we have
we
the
have
actual
some
for
kind
the
of
last
history.
3 or 4 years?
Well,
I'll give you another
the
example.
budget doesn't show the actual reserve fund.
No, it shows you the
23
ending
and
balance, that's, it,
24.
it works very differently.
I can give you guys another example. Does anybody know what a Plime vent system is?
What is it?
Plime vent, it's a vacuum recovery system that's at the fire department. It sticks at the end of every exhaust pipe.
Uh,
And when they fire up and leave the station, they
Throw
automatically
exhaust
detach
into the garage.
so that they're not throwing exhaust all over the building. I worked in a community that had a problem with its Plime vent system. It wound up costing $60,000. To repair that, we didn't have the money to go into another budget or do year-end transfers the way we do now. And that's a perfect example of when you'd use, in that case, $50,000 to $60,000 in the reserve fund to fix that, so you could have it up.
But wouldn't that system have a lifespan?
It was past it,
So shouldn't that then?
because there's no warranty, and it's
No,
not
no,
an
but-
insurance.
But my point being something like that, like an operating system,
Mhm.
right? I could see if there was an event in town that required overtime or that, that we had a huge storm that swept through and was all hands on deck for a period of time, extended period of time. But if there were a failure such as a building system,
Mhm.
right? That we should be planning for the lifetime and the maintenance of that system. It should go and be budgeted for, not in this fund, but budgeted for in whatever the appropriate fund
But
is.
it broke.
The
It
next
broke.
level too.
It broke today. What do I do? It broke today. I got a $50,000 problem. What do? I hit the reserve fund to take it.
Yeah.
That's
That's
it.
why I'm saying the
We
reserve.
cannot, I understand philosophically what you're saying, but there's no way for a long period of time that we're gonna be able to budget for that, right? So we know that we have updates and upgrades in our systems, our facilities area across all of our buildings that are gonna need to be done. In an ideal world, we'd establish a funding level for our facilities department to handle those, but we have a backlog. Right, and so right now, what we're doing is any funding available in a budget is to deal with as much proactively as we can. But while we're dealing with things proactively, things are breaking that we didn't anticipate.
Understood. So it goes up, not down.
I think we're
We're all in agreement.
all
and
right,
I'll shut up.
show of hands, how many people think that the reserve fund, if we're doing level one funding, should be increased, not decreased? Besides me, friends on the fence. Chuck, okay?
No,
Ted, you know?
you're gonna have to take from someplace else.
Yes.
It's unanticipated. That's exactly what it is. It's
But
unanticipated.
if the
And I
thing is,
also
if we
see
don't, if we do need it, which on a level one funding, we probably.
If level one funding, if there's any possible way of that going through, I mean, there's gonna be some major cuts.
Right, but we can only cut things that we actually know what to
Yeah,
cut.
right.
And this, unanticipated makes it even harder to.
Well,
cut.
unanticipated, if it's unanticipated, it's actually truly unanticipated, versus saying, okay, we're gonna have to give up a fire.
I hear what you're saying. The
Yeah.
problem is if we end up in deficit on any of these line items, then the Department of Revenue comes down on their broomstick and we are screwed. We cannot be in deficit on any of these
No, we
lines.
just
by
go
the
to a
end of the
special
year.
town meeting and have to appropriate more money.
To pick up on my comments before we went off on this. What we're doing is if we go to 300,000, we're changing the starting line for the departments that are doing their budgets. We're moving it back.
Yeah, you're right.
That's what's happening. That's what I was trying to say.
Okay.
You want 300,000 bucks? You can convince me to do that. And let's go over here and talk to Mary and Joe and say, sorry, guys, but I have to divvy up this $300,000 or 200,000 bucks. Or above 180, what it was last year. I mean, that's the reality. That's what those folks are
So
doing.
could you be convinced that
So let me
one
finish.
eighty would be okay?
Let me finish. That's what those folks are doing right now between today and October 1st. Now, I can imagine some of them are going like, give me the dice and I'll throw them against the wall,
Sure.
but it moves the starting line. That's the only point here.
Okay.
We've got the authority to come down on the 300 and maybe I'll vote for that. But I'd like to see these folks have a fighting chance to get what they need without having to say, there's no way I can keep Billy around, I gotta lose him.
80 grand is not going to move the needle
I don't
on this
disagree with you.
overall thing, but at least
I don't
keeping
disagree
it
with you.
180 as opposed to
Yeah,
reducing it.
I didn't say go to 300, I'm thinking,
No, that was
you don't go
me.
down, you don't go down, anything you hold, or you go up.
Do you know the actual for 24?
24.
I think for 23, it was 182,000, I think, for 23. And I was looking at the,
You get where I'm going.
Yeah.
I may have
Annual
one,
report.
another one, so
But I
it
get where
looks to me
Al's
like
coming
we
from, too.
used
I understand.
I hear you.
106,000.
Yeah.
But friend, I may have another one that I had not logged in here yet. Let me take a quick.
it's like 105.
What page is this?
You don't have it.
It's not on there, it's a-
Okay.
Yeah, actually, there's a few more that I have not logged. So in addition to, what was the last three? The
Round numbers.
procurement? All right, so we were at 105.
Right.
Then we came for 61,000 for repairs to our fiber ring for storm damage.
Yeah.
An additional 4,000 for repairs to a truck.
Okay.
And then I don't think we did that one. So add about 65,000 to this. So we spent
169.
170. Out of the 180.
Yeah, and there we are.
But I think
Is it your intent to
Al's
look
point
at
is well
other-
Yeah,
taken.
no, I understand to go up to
Yeah.
3, you're asking Mary and Joe to say,
Yeah.
need more over here, guys.
Right.
Let's
All
be.
right, so my takeaway from this conversation, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the finance committee recommendation is either the 100 or the 200. It is, I heard 180. I just heard keep it at 180.
level funding.
That I'm
Like
seeing
you're
some head
in
shaking.
theory doing in other
Okay,
budgets.
so on my
Chuck, would you be
tracker,
okay with that?
So the question is, this has to be done tonight, right? That we,
No,
we're,
it doesn't-
Yeah, so-
nothing's final.
we're not gonna go back to, can't we wait to see what some of the other
Yes, of
numbers
course.
look like?
She's just trying to get a sense of where
We're not
where our
ready.
head's at.
Exactly, so this is sort of us out of the gate, right? So traditionally, what would happen is that the finance committee would hear from all of the departments like myself and others. And you guys would vote a recommendation that night.
Mhm.
I don't think we're in a position to be able to do that.
No.
And
No,
so
of course not.
what we are going to be doing is to have these conversations. And then you guys are going to give feedback and we're gonna try to capture it in a tracker of
So,
some sort.
so I think what
And keep
they're
a running
hearing
tally.
is that the majority of us would want to at least stay at the 180, if not higher.
So option one would now change from
100 to
8.76%
So,
in this total page here to you'd add another 80,000 to that.
Yes,
So I'm going to, let me just flip back here. I'm not gonna change. I don't think.
but you've got a sense of what we want to do with it.
So I'm gonna go back here, right? So this is my tracker sheet, if you will, and let me go to. Okay, here's the reserve fund. Let's get rid of that. All right, so here we are at 180.
Yep.
This is my recommendation for option 1 and for option 2. This would be the impact. Over here is where we're gonna track the FinCom's recommendation. So the recommendation for tonight was to keep it at 180. That's
that-
what I'm gonna do.
Is,
In both circumstances,
Correct.
option 1 and
And
option
2, yep.
is everybody in cahoots with that?
I'm okay with.
I mean,
Yes. Cahoots?
Yep.
Okay, we're in.
Does that so far seem like a viable option and method for us to
It's
work
a
with?
reasonable expression of our opinion as of today.
I still want 300, but yeah, I'm willing, I'm willing.
I'm talking
willing
about
to
the
do that.
methodology, not
You're in it?
necessarily the number.
Yeah, methodology is fine.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
And we're really talking about the whole process, right, that we're trying to institute here.
Yep, and this
And
is
you-
exactly what I thought. We would have some growing pains and try to figure this out, so.
No, and
Nope.
And, and it was Al's, once I finally let the poor guy finish the sentence, Al's point that if we do increase anything, then sends a message to every department head that what they're trying to do is not as important. And
That's it.
I needed to hear that.
You grasped it, that's the main point.
Yeah, and I needed to hear that because I was hyper focusing on Jesus, I don't want to run out.
Of course,
So,
I
okay,
spent 15 grand on a special town meeting.
yeah, okay.
Understood.
All right, so celebrations, reserve fund. So now are we on to B, federal?
All right, so we can either keep going on my packet or we can switch over to Rainy. Do you have a preference?
Keep going on yours.
All right, so what we're gonna do is go to
B.
sheet B. And in order for you to, okay. In your packet, I'm actually first gonna ask you to look at this sheet, which is right before B. It's like this, and let me get it up here.
For illustration purposes only.
Yeah, because I don't want anyone taking the numbers off of here. These are not.
I hear
Flip it
you.
around, okay. All I'm trying to do is explain to you, when we have our omnibus budget with the 3,000 line items that are in there, it all rolls up into a summary. And this is an illustration of what the summary looks like. And so what I want to highlight for you is that the top section are all of the funding sources, the revenues that fund our operation. And then the bottom section is all of our expenditures. A little delay in my mouse here. And with the concept of preparing a balanced budget, those two numbers that we bring forward to town meeting should either be equal or the revenues should be higher than the expenditures, right?
Yep, yeah.
So the next couple of things that we're gonna talk about affect both parts of the budget, revenues and expenses. So I just wanted you to get your head around sort of the why I'm pointing to both of them. So if you flip to the next one, which is page B in your handout, it is about state aid. And state aid, so the chart looks like this. And JR, I presume you can see what I'm showing and you're following along.
Yeah, I am.
Excellent. Did I email out the packet to you guys before? Oh, okay, all right, so JR, you're,
Expense like that.
I'm sorry,
You showed, that's on a list of legal expenses, that's all I got.
okay.
Prior.
All right, so on this chart, this is the state aid worksheet, and there are two parts to state aid. There's money that we receive, our receipts, and then there's money that they take away from us called our assessments. And this whole thing with, you may have heard the term cherry sheet. Cherry sheet and state aid are interchangeable terms. And state aid is not a number that we vote at town meeting. It is not included in the omnibus budget. It is one of those other amounts to be raised that I set in the budget process after town meeting is over. But I want to highlight for you guys what's happening with state aid and what happens, and the impact that it has on our budget. So if you focus on the assessment section down below, the assessments are ARE, the assessments are items that fall into this category on the summary sheet. They are expenditures of our budget, so we need to have available funding to cover those expenditures. It's not a department, you're not gonna see somebody from the state come out here. But it is a number that is part of our budget. And what I'm showing here is the way that I'm projecting it. So again, I have a nice little black arrow that highlights for you the number. The total number that I am forecasting for FY 26 is $635,880. That represents a $31,242 increase. And that equates to a 5% increase in our assessments. So that number is a number that gets set by the governor when she first prepares her initial budget, and then it works its way through the state budgetary process, where the Senate and the House then weigh in on that. And so what happens is it changes with every vote on the state budget. And we actually do not know the final number until after our fiscal year starts and they finally sign a budget, right? So we always have to work with an estimate when we prepare our budgets. And so I want you to see how I'm estimating that. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because this is, again, another one of those fixed costs that we can't say to the state, nope, don't take that money from us. It comes right, they withhold it directly out of our state aid. And my point to you is that there are programs that we have to fund, and this is a fixed cost of the organization. That fixed cost is increasing well beyond the 2.5% expectation of other departments. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And the estimate is, again, here also based on a 5-year rolling average. So the immediate preceding 5 fiscal years, the average of the increases or decreases in our assessments is what I'm using to project for 26 and forward.
Right.
Okay? Does that all make sense?
Yep.
All right. So there will be no vote needed on that one. All right, next one.
No joy in my bill on that.
Next one is PEG access. That is chart C. PEG access, this is the other one that affects both parts of our budget, revenues and expenditures. At the end of the day, it is simply a pass-through cost for us from a budgeting perspective. But if everyone's familiar with this, I won't explain it, but if you're not familiar, I can explain it.
Chuck,
I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah.
Okay. So PEG access is, but basically cable access that operates here in town for educational and governmental purposes. And what happens is, there are 2 providers, Comcast and Verizon, who exist in the community. And what they do is, we have a contract with them. They are required to turn over to us 5% of their gross revenues for all of the subscribers that they have here in the town of Duxbury. And so what you will see is
just for cable,
yep,
not internet, just cable.
just cable.
That'll be important later.
Yes, because the trend is that their subscribers are declining, which means that their revenues are declining, and therefore the percent that we are taking in. Which is why for the last several years, the amount budgeted has been about $303,000. In FY 25, I reduced that down to 288, and what I'm proposing is to keep it at 288 for the next couple of years to sort of see that trend of what happens. But so we take in that 5% revenue, and we then have to pay out 3.3% of that over to pac-tv. And that's their funding source for their operating budget. So on a quarterly basis, we take in these receipts, and on a quarterly basis, we pay out pac-tv. It has to go through our budget process as both a revenue and an expenditure because we could not pay pac-tv if it was not authorized by town meeting. We can't cut a check unless it gets authorized by town meeting. So, so then there's excess, right? So the difference between that 5% we take in and the 3.3% that we paid at pac-tv. That excess sits in a special revenue fund and it can be used by the local community to either expand our programming or to upgrade, update our equipment. So what has happened in the last couple of years is that we have had an appropriation to the school department for them to upgrade their equipment over at their school buildings for their programming that they do. So anything related to public access, education, and government access, the surplus, if you will, can be used for those capital expenditures. What's the name of their program that they run over there? The
Dragon something.
something Dragon. Is it
Dragon
Magic
TV.
Dragon or
No,
something?
no,
Dragon
that's
TV.
the.
Dragon TV,
school.
that's it, Dragon TV. So any of the equipment and associated expenses with that program, we can use these funds to
But I
address.
think the confusion is that the schools thought that we had to give it to the schools.
No, because remember that we also broadcast in the mural room. So if we need upgrades in the mural
Right.
room.
I'm just saying
This is-
that was a confusion.
Yeah.
Because we didn't give them anything for a number of years
I
and
see.
then we gave them a lump sum because they didn't ask for anything. We didn't give them anything. We ended up with the surplus in this account and we had to true up, if you will, a couple of years ago.
I don't think that they were aware that those funds were available.
And then when they knew they were available, they thought they were all theirs.
And that's not the
And,
case.
and I understand why they thought that. They
Yeah.
weren't being grabby. It was just
Yeah.
kind of, it was.
They went to
confusing.
0 to 100 and.
Yeah, and then, and now that we need to just make sure that that's clear, that
Yeah.
that's a number that is malleable.
Right. So the amount that is being requested for the FY 26 budget is level funded at 288.
Okay.
Any questions on PEG access?
Oh, that's good.
All right. So let's go to, do I have any more schedules in here? Yeah, E.
Quick question, just
Mhm.
lack of, I wasn't paying attention. The first time you talked about that, the assessment, the state assessment, 335,000, what budget was that technically under?
So
Eight,
are you looking
look
at,
at your agenda,
oh, yeah, that's under, yeah, the grouping, the 800 series, 810, 820, 830.
that was 820.
That was 820, and it was also 830, because the county assessment was the first line in the, in that chart.
Okay, thank you.
That was 820 and 830.
So federal, state, county, other governments,
Yep, that was the state aid chart.
daily chart, okay, and
Yeah.
then we're at OPEB.
So we are, yep, we did the retirement and now we're at OPEB. OPEB is page E, as well as the supplemental pages behind it. When we completed our actuarial valuation, earlier, I sent out to all of you the final OPEB report. Did everybody receive that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you get that, Joe?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Teddy, do you have that from before or we can send it to you?
I think I may have forwarded it to you, but maybe not.
Okay, we'll get it to you if you haven't got it. You can delete it if you already do.
Okay, so in terms, so there's a few different things related to OPEB. But for the purposes of this discussion, the item that we're talking about that's a budgetary item is the amount that we contribute to our OPEB trust fund on an annual basis. The town has been contributing $300,000 annually for quite some time.
21, we doubled up.
There we go.
Yeah.
You doubled up in 21. I'm looking at the last column on
Because we
page
didn't pay in 20.
Exactly. So the recommendation is to keep it at 300,000 for the time being, for the foreseeable future. And that foreseeable future, is when the pension obligation is fully funded. Then we will be having, as we gear up for that, we'll be having conversations about adjusting this appropriation. This is not a line item in the budget. This has historically been funded via free cash.
Mhm.
And I would continue to recommend that because We're
So
not going to
transfer
find
from
an
general
additional
fund.
300,000
So
in our
that,
budget.
that final thing that says transfer from general fund is incorrect. It is free cash, not general fund.
So it's not yet, well, so the description there is the actual receiving account in the OPEB fund. When we book the entry into
Oh,
the
okay, okay,
OPEB fund,
okay.
it's labeled as the money. The reason it came in is that it's the transfer from the general fund.
But just so that you guys know, it's not coming out of the. Not coming out of the levy, if you will, it's coming out of free cash and always has.
I didn't even think about that anyway. I could just substitute those words for the word amount.
Yeah, well, you know, my brain is twisted.
All right, and then behind that chart, I have included just a couple of pages from the OPEB actuary report, GASB 75, for the results, and I just wanted to highlight for you guys that our total outstanding liability decreased dramatically, which is a really good thing. At the beginning of the year, we were at $68 million, which seems like an unattainable number today. And our liability through the course of activities in fiscal 25, our outstanding liability dropped from 68 million down to 51.7 million. And that is based on a whole suite of actuarial assumptions, but not the least of which is some of the plan design changes that we made with our health insurance plan with respect to our retirees coverage. Because remember, OPEB is for retiree health insurance, right? So we had an increase in the premium that we voted and implemented, and that took effect in FY 24. And a big part of the reason that this liability decreased was due to that action that we took. So we made some, we took some action in our health insurance plan designs in order to address a couple of things, one of which was our outstanding liability for OPEB. So we're seeing the benefit of that.
Good.
Any questions on the OPEB appropriation or the OPEB report?
What is the target to be quote unquote fully funded?
For what, for OPEB?
OPEB?
Zero.
Cows come home.
Are you talking about a date or a number? What are you asking
Number.
for?
Year.
The number?
I look at the chart.
If we were to be fully funded today,
Is it
if
51 million?
51.7 million.
And where is the fund today?
So on the chart, did I not give you?
I think there's only one town,
Right here.
and it's either Weston or Wellesley that is fully funded.
Right.
Yeah.
Am I making noise on that?
Watertown?
Watertown, I knew it was a
But
W.
there's actually, so Watertown was the first one and they fully funded a few years ago. Since then, I think there's two more. So I think there's a total of 3 communities that might be fully funded.
Watertown just has so much money.
I can tell you a few things about them.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's just, dropping out of their pockets. To answer your question on the chart that I gave you, see where it says plan assets?
Yeah.
We're at $6 million. That's how much we have in the fund. Those are our assets under management.
So at 300 a year, we won't be around to get there.
Nope.
Not gonna be our problem. We're good, friend.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so, and that got through all of my budgets for this evening, correct? Al, I'm looking at you. I didn't forget anything, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now we're gonna,
So the only thing that we are going to
we got one more.
fight about in the future is the reserve fund, but where we are now is hold. Zach, I just want to recap that for everybody, because that's the only change particularly that we're looking at, okay? All right.
Yep.
Okay, so now we're
Time
gonna
for the normal money.
flip over in our last department. So I said tonight I was gonna be the guinea pig, but now we go.
Yeah.
I've got a partner in crime here.
Exactly. Y'all have copies of my
Yeah.
legal spreadsheet?
I'm gonna try to pull it
Where
up
is
here.
It's in your
If you don't, I've
meeting.
got a hard copy.
Oh, it's in email?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it came out on the email.
Is it from you?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's right here. You wanna look over my shoulder?
I'm gonna call it up.
I mean, I've got my thing here.
You got ClearGov? Did you ClearGov?
Is it in ClearGov or is
No,
it just in
no.
email?
You guys print
It's
out, it's a spreadsheet. If you don't mind passing it around. Thank you.
It'll go in ClearGov tomorrow.
Thank
Okay.
Friend, pass me one, will you?
JR, I'm gonna call it up for you on the screen.
Thanks.
So these,
I got it on the phone here.
Yeah,
okay.
it did go to you in an email.
Yeah.
Eight,
Okay.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right, so I've got
Oh,
one,
no.
the legal fees, one, okay.
Yeah, it's called legal.
Talking about- Okay, perfect. I'm gonna save that to my magic
Thank you.
file.
but we're not going to, okay, Rainey, you get the copy.
In your email, JR.
Yeah, no, I got it right here on my phone.
That's okay, if you'll have.
Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna have to call it a bit different way, sorry, it's
That's okay.
telling me I need to update Adobe.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Rainy, all right,
So
so
let
this
me
is,
walk you through this. What I did was title things so you could understand what the legal matters are that we're dealing with here and there. We have some recurring annual costs. And what I did was I compared one year to the next, FY 23 to FY 24. What I want you to note is that in FY 23, we had budgeted $155,000 for our legal line. Okay, so write that down. This is gonna become important. In FY 23, we had $155,000 in our legal. In FY 24, we had budgeted $160,000. But we went to the reserve fund for an additional $20,000 because we went over on the legal line.
Tell me again, what did you say?
We were at 160 in
Okay.
24. But we hit the reserve fund for another 20,000,
so 180.
so 180, yeah.
Okay,
The
okay.
fiscal year we're in right now, FY 25. I budgeted 170,000. Okay, so right now, we're at 170,000. In my option one budget, that number is I'm gonna push it to the max, the full 2.5, so that number for option one. For FY 26 is gonna be 174,250.
Is that on this page
No,
anywhere?
that's why I'm telling you to write it down.
Oh, sorry.
2026, 174, 250.
And that's
One-
not it.
For
that's not
FY
cleared up yet?
26, FY 26, option one. I'm gonna put 174,250,
Okay, 2.5%.
exactly. For my option two, it's either gonna be $180,000 or $185,000, and I'm gonna walk you through this and tell you why.
180 what?
I'm either gonna go 180 or 185,
Okay,
so I just want you to keep those figures in mind.
Okay,
Now what we'll do is we'll kind of run through the little list here, so. Line one is Labor Council, their fee went up, not by much. This is a steal. We pay $2,200 a month for Labor Council. The only thing we pay for outside of that retainer fee is if we go to court, basically. But,
which happens.
it's well worth it. Yeah, it's rare. So that fee is basically $26,400 for the year. What I wanted you to note was the difference between FY 23 and FY 24. So under number 2, administrative and general matters,
oh,
there's a big jump. Like a $35,000 jump, and I think the reason for that is access to counsel is a large part of it.
535, baby.
Yeah, when you increase your board by 60%, there's gonna be more people that are gonna want to make phone calls. And when they do, and they get the number, they're gonna make it. And so I'm never adverse to having the board have direct access with counsel. I think it's a good thing. It's a wise decision. I think I think some of the questions that we ask perhaps could be refined a little bit, but it's definitely something I'm gonna be watching. Because that's a remarkable jump.
Is this something that is going to be used as a teachable moment for the board?
Yes, and this is the first time anybody's seen this. First
That
time-
they can't keep calling them?
Yeah, well, we'll have a discussion on it, and they'll understand why.
for single point of contact.
Yeah, well, we do that, but in some cases, one board member will have an interest or a project that he or she is pursuing, and they'll say, I need to call counsel on that, and I will, they are religious about letting me know that they're talking to counsel first, which is the main thing I ask for. And the primary reason I do that is, well, there's 2 reasons. 1, so I can track the bills, and 2, to see if the question's ever been asked before.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing like a redundant question. If we have the answer, we're gonna give it to them in advance.
Does that stop them from calling?
Yeah, in some cases it will. If they know that there's an answer out there and we've already got it, we'll give it to them. If it's something that they have been thinking over, but sometimes, thought processes, certainly my own, can move into the abstract in a hurry, and you don't know the answer, and the only way to divine that answer is to talk to counsel, and I'm not
Yep.
adverse to that, because then we all learn.
Okay.
So this is also part of an educational aspect, and I think that's wise too. Particularly, a perfect example, MBTA. One of the more complex issues we're facing, in the days ahead. There have been instances where board members have needed to have direct access to counsel to work through a series of questions, like 20 or 30 different points. And I'm always on the thread, and there are certainly questions that I can't answer, but we happen to have one of the state's leading experts in Amy Questle, who is town council at the KP, who knows it inside and out. And so it's a learning process for all of us. And in that case, it's very beneficial. So, yeah, so the price is high, but the price has gone up, but in most cases, it seems worth it. Conversely, if we look at line 3, town meeting costs have gone down. Why? Because we didn't have to have another special. But now you know where to get the price of the special town meeting, Betsy.
Okay.
Right here.
That's where it comes from. Expenses are just that, expenses, when you have to go to a couple town meetings, the expenses go up, and so we had a couple in 23, but we didn't in 24. Contracts, line 4, that's just contract review for different contracts that we.
So will that go up this year because we have so
That
many?
stayed flat. So the only places where you see, or that's a new line this year, like we had.
So that has
for
nothing
year.
to do with labor. That has nothing to do with the union.
No, contracts for building construction projects, things like that.
Okay,
I should point out, by the way, the reason you don't see FY 25 data in here is because the bills lag about 2 months, and so I don't have FY 25 data, and all I would have to be able to give you. I would only be able to give you July, and 1 month does not an average make.
no, that's fine.
That's why we're using the 2 years. Real estate, just simply real estate transactions. If there's more activity, there's more real estate transactions. That's for closings, things like that. Deeds, you name it.
Is that when we buy stuff?
Buy, sell, whatever,
So I
convey,
thought most of that
convey,
was,
easements, anything having to do with real estate. And we do a lot of easements.
so it's easements, it's not
Yeah,
the
title
CPA,
research.
it's not the CPA purchase.
No, you'll see that further down.
Okay,
Some of our annual activity, with the beach nourishment project, that went down from 1 year to the next because we did the beach nourishment in 1 year and everything else was handled in that prior year. In some cases, there are different cases like Bradford versus the chief of police. That was just a case that had to come up in FY 24. Review of the lease agreement, pretty much costs you about $1,000 a year to review it. You have another case, Fahey versus the chief of police. We had the Holtec nuclear plant, when they're writing letters to senators and congressmen. Cost money, because they want to make sure the wording is correct. If they attend meetings or do any action on our behalf regarding that. Doing your legal review with regard to the closure, still it's a discount, $540, it's not much. This one is one that's gonna go away, McLaughlin versus the town and the ZBA, that case is concluded, so. In FY 23, we had spent just over $13,000. Last fiscal year, it was $3,000, there won't be any more of those because.
have we finally
Yes,
stopped suing the guy?
Yeah, it's all done, he won.
Yeah,
Yeah, 10 years ago.
Number 14 is Stanford versus the town. It's a property rights question, access question, so that one keeps going. It depends on the level of activity. The case was started in FY 23. It was maturing in FY 24, and it'll certainly go forward in FY 25, but hopefully we'll be able to reach a conclusion.
any anticipation on when these are going to conclude or roll off?
No, I mean, McLaughlin, that was 10 years.
Yeah, I know.
It's
That's why
impossible.
that I'm asking, if I'm asking the question.
Stanford could in a year.
What is Stanford, remind me?
It's a case, I believe it has to do with access. On either a paper road or. I don't-
Okay, so it's nothing like that, it's nothing that we're doing to ourselves.
No, it's
Okay.
trying to clarify and delineate an access way.
Okay, that's fine.
That's the best way to put it. Waterfront Realty, that's ongoing. That could be another year, certainly.
Is that the property down on on the Pembroke line or the Kingston line?
Yes. Yes. Weechi versus the town, this involves an abutter to the Duxbury Yacht Club, and it's a small amount of money. Windsor at Millbrook, it's 40B, so there's a lot of work associated with the legalities of the 40B process. Digestream New England, that was fee for investigative services regarding the legal case. Ellen Hutchinson was an attorney hired as special counsel for a certain case. The American Arbitration Association, and it's $650 to go to arbitration. The Board of Appeals, that's working through writing and drafting decisions for the Board of Appeals. If they have a large caseload, then they're gonna have more. They're gonna need more assistance writing decisions. The larger ongoing cases, Kathleen, these are the ones that don't go away in a day. 22, 23, and 24 are all related to Mr. Husk. 25, it's a larger case, but it may not be that protracted. It's Duxbury Energy Storage. It's a project proposing to, with the ZBA, proposing to basically put batteries. I'm really dumbing it down. Batteries for solar projects. It's where they would store the energy on a property. Don't think like a car battery. They're
Yeah, I understand.
just, that's what the idea is.
But what's the, that's it's 5.
Yeah, it's an energy storage facility.
Yeah.
And the ZBA is fighting them on that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yeah, they denied it.
okay.
Line 26 is me telling them Costa, their special counsel for the Webster Point Village.
That has been going
This
on
is-
for 40 years.
Yes, so Kathleen, there's one that's kind of evergreen. It'll always be there, you know.
Well, I don't understand what we're paying money when they go dormant.
They do, they ebb and flow. In fact, it flowed about a year or two ago after having ebbed for 8 years. So it
Is it
depends on
active
who the
now?
owner is. Tell me who the owner is, and I'll tell you if they're gonna be active.
Where
It's,
is Webster Point Village?
Duck Hill
near Duck
Road
Hill.
going.
Oh,
towards-
Backside of
yeah,
Duck
yeah,
Hill.
yeah,
You
gotcha.
kind of connect up over
Yeah.
onto what's the
Mark.
street?
Duck Hill and
Yeah, but it would, doesn't hook up into
Colby Hewitt Drive.
Colby Hewitt Drive,
This
So
is
it's-
over in Millbrook, right?
yes.
behind Millbrook going down it, and this is a huge tract of land that they've wanted to develop. But there's no water there and we have to split,
And
it's,
it involved Marshfield because it's
Yeah,
a
Marshfield.
online
So
issue,
the-
and the question becomes, what's conservation and what is?
the project
What is the
is,
building
would
on
have,
and what is-
half be Marshfield and half be Duxbury, this neighborhood that they're trying, that they've discussed. But
So,
literally, I'm not exaggerating, it has been going on for 30, I'm exaggerating with 40, but it's 30 years.
Yeah,
And people have died, they don't it,
yeah,
and then their kids come in and then it down, they come, it's.
yeah, it revs up, it ramps
Revs
down,
down, and it always comes back to one thing, rural Duxbury, give them water,
exactly.
and then we say no.
So, when you look at all that, lines 2 through 26, comes to 179,000, I mean, the writing's kind of on the wall. Sure, there's ways to trim a few things here and there. But,
McLaughlin's going away, that's $3,000, but that's,
But once you're actively engaged,
Yeah.
you're actively
so you
engaged.
can see that I can easily justify the 2.5, you know.
yeah.
Go to
yeah,
174,
absolutely.
250, but you can also see why I could justify, and I'm about to get into that. Why I could justify going to 180 or 185. So the thing I didn't tell you is lines 27 to 31, these are all bills that, or cases that we have that are paid by other groups. So CPC legal expenses are about $2,300, planning department is 4,800. The Affordable Housing Trust is picking up the tab for Lincoln Street, East Street, and Watermark. So those are all things that happened in FY 24. So they're good about that. But the thing,
No, Rainey, who was Watermark?
John.
Oh, okay, yep,
Who's the,
Baldwin,
no,
No.
the one over. By Vonges, the Kingston line.
Jonathan Marks.
Yes, Jonathan Marks, that I couldn't remember his last name.
Okay, so how is that differentiated against what was up above?
Because part of it deals with CPC issues, the other part deals with town issues.
Okay,
So
so is CPC picking that up?
that part, the 20,000 part,
Okay,
they picked it up. So why would I increase it beyond the 2.5? Well, I got 4 good reasons. One, the Husk situation hasn't ended, and that's ongoing now. The obvious reason, perhaps the most obvious reason, is MBTA and zoning. That's not gonna end. I sent a letter to the commissioner of whatever the agency is. And she has responded, and we're meeting with her next week. We're looking for an extension. If we can push this MBTA thing back, not for lack of want of execution, but for more time for people to understand it, absorb it, and maybe embrace it. Then we might get lucky and be able to move forward with something in town meeting that could pass, because right now, we're all fearful that it won't. So to do that, I need Amy Questle at the table, who is our legal expert on that, and that's money. Also, contract review for all of the PFAS projects coming up, because we've got a slew of them. That's all gonna deal with legal issues, and then probably the second biggest one, third biggest one would be the seawall betterments, once we start the seawall, which is gonna go underway next week, or the week after. Because on the back end of that, once we've constructed it, then we're gonna assess betterments to the remaining 2/3 of the wall. The people that live near it, first, second, third tier.
So historically, just as a sidebar to that, we have missed the timeline in the past on betterments, filing betterments. And then the town is on the hook for all the money that we had already approved.
Well,
So it's something that the attorneys have to keep track of, because we almost missed it the last time.
No, we didn't.
Well,
No, we were like white on rice, and I can tell you why. Because they weren't gonna let us forget it. So what the reason I think that I suspect there may be legal challenges is because the price that the second phase people at the seawall are gonna pay is gonna be a lot higher than the first phase. And the reason for that is, in the first phase, FEMA covered 75% of the work. But in this case, they're paying the full boat.
Right.
15 million.
oh,
I see.
we knew we were gonna get
Yeah,
sued
no.
the minute it passed.
Hmm?
Who did not think we were gonna
That
get
was- that
sued?
was pretty much spoken to it on me.
For what?
For the sequel then?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna sue.
15 million. Is
Yeah.
all the-
I don't have anything in writing.
When we approved the,
That's how you guys voted
we
it.
approved the funding for the seawall.
Okay, right.
25%.
Yes,
Right,
yes,
but
but
they
Yeah,
agreed
we-
to benefits to get it done, but we all know that, but they don't want it.
It's losing money at somewhere else.
seawall, it's all us. Meaning the percentage they're gonna pay is high. They're gonna pay 100% of the loan.
Of their betterment,
Yes.
but
As
not of
opposed
the
to-
total project.
Right, we don't have FEMA assisting us for the second phase. It's us alone. So I suspect there may be some legal challenges with that. So that's why I think it's pretty easy to justify going up to 180 and 185, because there's some work that's involved with that.
Yeah,
I don't know which number it'll be, but it'll be one of those two. I wished it wasn't, but
and are you gonna go over all of this with the,
board?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I just did this for first blush tonight because you had asked.
perfect,
You want to talk about town meeting?
sure,
It's on your agenda.
the special, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not anywhere near annual yet.
Well, no, but we have. How many, are you gonna, do you have, is that closed out as far as the articles that are gonna be on it?
Oh, hell, we haven't even opened the warrant yet, Betsy.
Yeah, it's, I thought,
Another week or so.
but you must have an idea,
Give you the list right now.
okay,
Those are all. If you guys, one of you can take these and pass them around, everybody gets one. If you don't mind, please. One of you. So the top sheet is JR, I'm sorry, I don't have this for you, but I'll.
All right.
Isn't that, yeah, will you please?
Yeah, I'll try and speak clearly for you. So right now we've got 8 articles. They're yes, I'm gonna go through it.
This,
So,
in your front.
yeah, you can,
In
can't you?
your frame,
8 articles. The beginning of the show will be the MBTA Communities article. By the way, these are just listed. They're not ordered in any particular way, although they could fall in this order and it might work. So Article 1 would be the MBTA Communities. Article 2, yeah, sure, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Kathleen, I can see.
hey, Jay, I'm gonna take a picture of these and email them to you right now, so you can.
All right, thank you.
have them all on.
else you want over there?
All set over here, thank you, Chuck.
All right, the first one we're looking at is just,
No, I was gonna share.
just the simple one sheet,
Okay.
the list. Yeah, Article 1, MBTA communities, I don't yet have an article, it's being drafted, so we'll have something to contemplate. Article 2, it may sound familiar to you, we did it last year. Proposed acceptance of Cooper Hill Road as a town way. I'm just gonna read from the explanation, forgive me for reading to you, but it's just easier. This article was previously presented to the voters as Article 23 in the annual town meeting warrant, at which time the Select Board and Finance Committee both unanimously recommended its approval. At the annual town meeting on March 9th, 24, the voters expressed their agreement and approved the article. With the 2/3, with the requisite 2/3 vote for passage. The statutory deadline for completing the road acceptance process is 120 days from the date of the vote. And that deadline was in early July of this year. Due to a number of variables, an inadvertent error occurred that precluded the town from completing the street acceptance process at that time. As a result, this article, which is the same language found in the March 9th version, is returning to the voters for their reconsideration. As was stated in the previous article explanation, blah, 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 everybody's met all the requirements that they have to, it's gone to the planning board. Was constructed in accordance with Mass General Law and the planning board's rules and regulations. The article met all of the statutory filing deadlines and as such is being presented to the voters for their consideration. All of the procedural elements previously noted have again taken place anew and have been met, thus this article is being presented again to the voters for their reconsideration. So what happened is we missed the 120 days filing deadline.
Okay.
Council called to apologize.
So we can do over.
She was settling her parents' estate in India. They had both died. It took her 2 months. She wasn't able to get back in time to get it all filed, so. She apologized.
It's a do over.
They're handling-
Not gonna charge us.
They're
Is she
handling-
charging us?
They're handling it for free. So it's basically a procedural matter at this point. It's unfortunate that it happened, but stuff happens. The third article is a harbor walk easement. Y'all familiar with French Memories?
Yeah.
Maybe you saw this on TV the other day. There's a proposal to go from the French Memories building in between that and the Nathaniel Windsor House and kind of have a little easement that goes right, leads to the back to Matakeesit. So that's what that proposal is. There's two articles. The first is additional Department of Public Works in the facility for bonding. I just gave you guys copies of those articles. I also gave you a copy, and I didn't keep one, of the memo that I sent to the board. So short answer is DPW, we approved. What do we approve?
26.4.
26.4 million. Went out to bid, bids came in too high.
When was that bid done?
June for July.
So this year, so
Yeah.
recent.
June 20,
Yeah.
2024.
Yeah. So the bids came in too high. So, oh God, now what? You know, inflation killed it. Went up 600% or 300%. So. Went out to bid with the seawall bids, we were carrying 20 million, came in at 15. Now I got $5 million. State law allows us to basically take one pot of money and blend it into the other, so we can take that 5 million from the seawall and apply it toward the DPW if the voters of town meeting approve it. Two articles.
Just town meeting?
Just town meeting, no ballot is required. We've gone through bond council, went through town council, it's all blessed, the article that you see in your packet there. That's been drafted by bond council, it's the one that's gonna appear in the warrant, both of them.
Majority or 2/3, Vinnie?
2/3. 2/3.
Yeah, thank you.
The seawall money has not been spent. No.
No, signed contract.
So
That's underway.
if we have an overrun on the 15 mil, then what?
We're carrying it, oh, well, the bids actually came in at, no, we had to reject the low bid.
Oh, I'm sorry, is that here too? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
the low bid, the second bid came in at 14.4. And that gives us a $500,000 cushion, and the engineer was certainly comfortable with $500,000 cushion, so. That's, and plus that's on top of it.
Is it?
Yes, it is on the second page, top paragraph.
Okay,
That's on top of the contingency they've already had built into the project too, so. He has advised that it's more than enough, so. We've got plenty of money to,
Is he willing to speak to that at town meeting, at the
Oh, yeah.
special?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we came in on the budget on the last.
Just.
No, no, actually, we wanna touch over, we had the cushion there too. So, yeah, that's not easy.
So, Rainey,
Yes,
quick question about this.
Yeah.
So the DPW project, once it got the higher bid,
Mhm.
there was work done to repropose what the DPW layout would look like.
Yeah, they went from 36,000 square feet to 31.
And
We value
there was a
engineered it.
theory that the town was gonna go forward with that plan based on what the bid was. Or what they had previously allotted in terms of amount, right? That was,
Mhm.
the goal was to go for the smaller condensed building.
Yep.
I guess my question is, now knowing that this pot of funds came after there had been a agreement to work towards a smaller DPW. Is that excess of funds now that are available through a lower seawall proposal
No,
best attributed somewhere else other than the DPW to get it back to where the original proposed?
well, it can only be for a construction project, because this
It's
is
all
money,
construction.
this is money that we're bonding, we're borrowing to build something.
I think the question is gonna be, we save 5 million, why not enjoy the win? I'm not saying that's
I
my
understand.
question, but that is
And-
gonna be the
And
conversation.
because I don't believe that the price is gonna be 5 million, we're actually going out to bid, so we'll have a real number in hand when we walk into town meeting. It might not be 5 million, maybe it's 3.8 more than we need. But it will forever end the debate on what's the DPW gonna cost, because at that point, we will know. If
Really?
really, really, and if people wanna buy it, they will, and if they don't, they won't.
This is.
We tried this in 2015, I don't know if anybody remembers.
Yeah, I
Oh,
remember.
yeah.
We were gonna build it for 15 million.
I remember.
Oh, I remember.
Everybody voted for it.
Yep.
Pandemic
There, I
hits,
would have voted.
pandemic hits, inflation goes through the roof, party's over.
Well, no, so
Um,
if indeed if it passes, great, Bob's your uncle. If it fails, what happens then?
I don't know.
Do
I
we go
really
ahead
don't
with the re-engineered version?
Well, first of all, you need to understand, we had the first engineering version, which is just to make it simple, the $36,000 version, okay?
36 square feet.
36,000 square feet version with 3 bid alternates.
Mhm.
Then we went from that to 31,000 square feet with 1 bid alternate. What we've done is taken that and gone into the middle, and I think we're at 32,000,
32.6, I think.
32, yeah, call it 33,000 square feet. With 1 bid alternate. We were able to build some of the bid alternate stuff back in. And still reduce the size of the building, so we value engineered it. So you've got, so basically think of it as porridge, too hot, too cold, just right. We found the one that's just right. The one that's too small was just too small. Go ahead.
We value engineered it like we did the police station?
Yeah, it's what we had to do. It's what the board told us to do.
We
The
know what
board gave us an
happens here.
edict.
Anybody getting in
Pouring money
trouble?
into it.
The board gave us an edict. They said, make it work. Okay, we'll make it work. And how do you make it work? You don't have as much,
I'm just pointing out
as
that
much
there's
flair. as
we
you
have
might like.
experience with value engineering in this town.
I know.
But he can't.
I understand.
Yeah.
Make sure we bring that up at town meeting.
So I
Yeah.
think this is a good opportunity for us to hear what your concerns are, because we need to prepare for them for.
Yeah.
So
I think
what's your reaction?
I think the reaction is gonna be, we saved $5 million on the seawall, take the win.
That's
Yeah.
fine, but then what do you want to do with the DPW building?
Yes,
Because
I,
the
that's what I'm
DPW
saying, that's
building,
not my,
We have an insufficient appropriation.
so the
We've
argument,
gone out to bid once, we know we do not have enough money to build what we anticipated. We're now going out to bid for a second time to have a hard number. If town meeting votes no, then we have to reject all of those bids again,
Mhm.
and
We're nowhere.
nowhere.
And the board told us not to ask for more money, so we're not. What we're asking to do is move money that's
Reappropriate.
previously been approved. We're
but I
reappropriating
think
from
that
one
the
pot to the
argument
next.
at town meeting cannot be about the seawall, it has to be about the DPW. That's the only conversation, and
It
the
can't
source
be,
of the funds
because
is
The seawall.
the seawall.
Yeah.
But that's the conversation.
So that's not technically what the debt exclusion's doing. So we would just be borrowing less under the seawall project and borrowing more
Under the, yeah, exactly.
And what
I'm
we're
making-
saying is we're promising to the community that we're not going to exceed the amount of all of the debt exclusions that have been previously offered.
Yeah, so we've authorized, what is it, $46,400. We're not gonna borrow that much. We're gonna.
That's all math. I think if you want it to pass, what I'm saying is the conversation at town meeting has to be about. You need to get this money because it keeps going up. We need the
Yes.
DPW barn. And we're gonna be coming back to you in 2 years and we're gonna be asking you for 30 million.
Or
So,
if the conversation goes,
Right.
build with what you have. With what we were appropriated.
well, but
And the thing
that
is,
doesn't work.
we've
I'm
thought
just-
about
I'm
that
just saying,
because the
yeah,
board, the
yeah,
board
no,
has
yeah.
also said, why don't we reconstitute the committee?
Mm.
You know, there's another
That's what got us into
6
it.
months, because now what we can do is bring in more people, re-educate them. Every day that goes by, this thing costs us
No, no,
money,
no,
and that's why I said, let's get a number to bring to town meeting and say, folks, here it is, now we know what it's gonna cost, there's no more guesswork.
I think.
There's no more bullshit. Here's what it is. It's gonna be 31 million and whatever, and there it is. You want it or not? And they can say, okay, great, or no, I don't want it.
Isn't there an alternative though?
What would that be?
The alternative is to build what you can. With the funding, the appropriation that was approved.
Yeah, we could, but I say, let's try this first to see if we can get the one that's just right.
So
Mm.
what I'm hearing. Is this fails, this fails. They say, take the 5 million, save the 5 million, take the win,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Then
Then we'll go back to the
You
small one
have-
and revisit that.
you have. Then the choice that is still available to you is to break ground on the DPW. Garage and build what you can with the monies that you have
No,
available.
we have to go out of bid again.
So
You'd have to go to bid again,
Yes.
because you don't have a bid that matches the
Right.
appropriation.
Exactly.
keep in
And
mind,
that is what has to be made clear, is
Mhm.
that we can't go forward. Because the bids that we have on the table
Are for this,
are more
for
than
this
what we
33,000
have.
square foot project,
keep in
not
mind,
something less.
every iteration. that
No,
we
no,
go
no, we
through,
totally, yeah.
We are incurring costs.
Yes,
And there's no shovel in the ground.
Yeah, we spent about $1.5 million, but that's about.
but you have to you have to explain to them that there is no plan C.
Mm-mm.
That you can't go forward because the bid, legally, the bid that you
Yeah.
have is more than the appropriation available, so we are dead stop.
But
That's not-
the flip side of that is, we have voted to appropriate X. Right?
Mhm.
24 million or 26 million, whatever that is, right?
26.4.
26.4. The bids came in at 31,
Mhm.
okay? So why wouldn't there be a conversation that says, okay, what do we get it for 26.4?
And what
And we
he's
did
saying
that.
is you have to reconvene.
We did that. We looked at it, we looked at a 31,000 square foot building.
And that would be 26.4.
Well, maybe, we don't know.
It's a little higher than 26.4. It's still, it was.
We
You're
don't
getting
know.
to the point of where
We're getting to the
not,
point where you can't make
one
it.
of the issues, we're getting to the point where the building is no longer. Including the features that were expected in the building.
Like offices.
So here's the argument for that. The offices were going to allow us at town hall to move people down to that building and therefore free up square footage in town hall and eliminate the necessity for a renovation, not a renovation, don't get your eyes googly. But to add square footage to town hall to accommodate growth in town government. We were going to be able to avoid that project because we were going to be able to move people out and free up square footage. That goes away. I mean, there's,
It goes so far beyond that.
I know,
This is, it's a work safety issue, never mind having an office. Do you want your guys in the DPW hanging out in a building when there's a heavy breeze, the walls are flapping in the wind? Is everybody okay with that? Cause if they are, they're pretty sick. They're pretty sick people who say that's all right. That's a sad.
but we've
state of
already
affairs.
decided that we're not
It's
okay
certainly
with
more
that.
important to the town than the seawall.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But we got that.
So is
conversation.
it, is this, what did I understand, is this takes 2/3
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, both of them, both articles. will.
borrowing authorization.
But the conversation at town meeting has to make it painfully clear that adding or having some more availability of funds is the only realistic option for the garage.
Mhm.
And that's gonna just take some,
So what if you were to take the 26.4 and go to the 26.4?
You won't have what was promised, which was a building with a 50-year lifespan. You'll be coming back. You'll be coming back.
Well, if we do value engineering, I'm not so sure we've got a 50-year lifespan anyway.
I am.
Okay.
How close does the 5 million get us to where we really designed the building for? We've already downsized it from 36,000 to 33. Is it getting us to 33,000
Mhm.
square foot building or 36?
33.
So it's already, it's down.
It's already been reduced. Yeah.
And you're not 100% sure what that, it might not be 5 million, it might be 3.8 million.
That's my number, yeah.
Right.
They will bring it to the estimator tomorrow to find out.
so we will have a number at the special.
You're gonna have a real number, bona fide. It's gonna be a bid. It's gonna be, the bids are gonna be open 5 days before town meeting.
Well, I
I
for one
think
would
this
be
is
in
gonna
favor.
be an uphill.
What, Teddy?
Oh, trust me. I
I
know.
guess I would. Generally disagree with bringing up opening space at town hall.
Mhm.
No, I'm
Because
just,
I'm-
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I
the
agree.
selectmen would say, oh, who needs more space at town hall?
Yeah.
Oh my God, we're talking about doubling up in offices.
That's-
It's crazy, and we have one meeting space at a time that we vie for. I've gotta find alternate space, but I could make arguments until the cows come home about
Right,
the space and the allocation in that building.
that's, I understand what you're saying though, Teddy. Yes, you are absolutely 1,000% correct.
Correct.
But we're talking about,
We're trying to.
it needs to be,
That's
it
not-
needs
that's
to be
not
a very
part of the
simple
argument.
presentation.
That
and
has
very
nothing
clear
to do with
presentation
it.
at town meeting, because the more we bring into it,
You need
the
to understand,
crazier.
this is all I thought about for 3 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
This
that's
is,
fine.
this has been
But again,
a lot of hard work.
that's where my head went, right?
What's Article 3?
It's an easement, between French Memories and, the Nathaniel Windsor
Oh,
House. to
okay.
allow- back in the-
I'm sorry. The next article is what I really meant.
Article 6, is a general bylaw amendment. It's a proposed change to the expenditure limits in the revolving funds. Basically, it's upping the number here for the senior center, bringing it up to 400,000.
And adding a new one,
What's a new one?
the vehicle energy.
Oh, I haven't had that one yet.
Yeah, we need to establish a new revolving fund. So I brought forward an issue to the fiscal advisory committee last week to establish a fee schedule for finally charging
Oh,
for people who
Jesus.
charge their electric vehicles at our charging locations. So for the past 4 years or 3 years, the town has been essentially providing free electricity to folks who are at the charging stations. And so my proposal is to activate that and start charging by November 1st. But we need to establish a revolving fund for those proceeds to be deposited into.
Okay, thank you.
You got it.
And then the last two are supplemental appropriations, and Mary can tell you about that, and unpaid bills.
Oh, yeah, so we have a couple of unpaid bills. There have been a couple of situations where we've had new department heads who have come in, and with the outgoing department head, there were bills that fell through the cracks. So not unexpected. There's a couple of those. And then supplemental appropriations is I have to revise the debt service budget for FY 25. To include the amount of the bond anticipation notes that I issued for the 2 debt exclusion projects that we're talking about. So some of that debt is gonna start to go on people's tax bills in FY 25. And that needs to be adjusted in the budget. So once I finish calculating that, I've got to bring that forward to you guys for review anyway.
Will free cash be certified by the special?
So, God willing.
Well, I'm just saying, is it available?
Oh,
Not right now.
Would it be available by the
I'm
special?
trying.
Okay, so that's why I'm asking whether it's certified, whether it's free cash. is.
one thing I wanna draw your attention to on the memo that I gave you,
Yep, fine.
there's a mention of sand. Okay, that's changing all the time. In fact, the original proposal was to take the 30,000.
Time.
Yeah. There's 30,000 cubic yards of sand in the back of the DPW that would be excavated out of there. One was to just give it to the developer, whoever's
What,
gonna
put it on
build
the
it.
beach?
Well, that was another proposal, and we've looked at that, but to do that,
No, don't
It's-
answer me, don't answer me.
no, we've actually looked
No,
at it.
you
This
have
is
to.
part of
Yes.
what we've been doing.
Rainey has been working so hard on this.
$250,000 to store it there for 18 months,
What, why?
because it would be in the lot across from Blakeman's, the overflow lot. And they want 7,000 cubic yards of it, so I don't know if I can do it. So we've been working through that,
Would that be during the winter months, it'd be stored?
and all summer. It would be up until, it would be up until. Most likely the fall of 26. No, not that long, for
Who
spring of
collects the
26.
fee from that
Sorry,
parking lot? Who gets the?
it's split between DBR and Blakeman's. $20 a car.
Do we have a number, what that represents, what it,
It's based on a 3-year average, as to how often they've had to use it over the past 3 years, the overflow lot. And the number of cars that were in there, and then you take that. Total of
Why
those,
does the sand have to be there that long?
Huh?
Why does the sand have to be there that long?
because of the permitting process to be able to put it in front of the seawall. That's where it would ultimately go, and by the way, it can't go just as it is, it has to be mixed. It has to be mixed with additional material.
Yeah.
And we're almost thinking it's not worth it because the total volume of sand at 30,000 cubic yards represents 4.2% of the total that we're permitted for, which is 712,000 cubic yards.
Can we sell it to somebody?
It's not worth anything. These guys are
I'm
trying.
just asking.
We've tried that. We had a package go out early. That
Nobody wants to buy it.
wasn't, well, there's a couple people that do. The DVR does, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you, friend.
Thanks, Brian. So it remains to be seen what will happen.
What? Yeah,
Date for next week.
okay.
What remains to be seen is what will happen with the sand from the project. Right now, it's not looking.
Okay, we're gonna bring sand to the beach. Okay.
No, and then we're gonna take it,
Wheelbarrows.
and then we're gonna take it and throw it in front of the seawall. That's where it's going ultimately.
That's where it should go.
Well, we're required to do that.
why don't you
CZO.
save time and just take it down a Plymouth and dump it down by the connection?
Exactly. Where it all winds up, man.
Oh,
So that's the latest and greatest.
You done?
That's all I got.
Okay.
Did you need more?
Nope, no.
No, sir.
Done, thank you.
We've made some serious commitments to Mary that she gets to leave here.
Can I move to adjourn?
No,
Let's so-
one second.
Meeting-
Our next meeting is,
Eighth.
I got the 8th.
Is that what it is? I'm trying to find the schedule.
okay,
When is it? The eighth of October.
not for a bit. We have, so our next meeting, I believe, was 2 weeks from tonight.
Eighth.
The 8th. So, and when are you starting your meetings? Is that still on schedule, the same schedule that was published as far as meeting with your department heads?
When was that?
The answer is TBD.
Yeah. we
So
don't-
will we be getting updates so that we know? Because if
You'll
people
know.
can't,
You'll know.
if people can't go, the liaison can't go, then friend or I have to go, or somebody else has to go to cover that.
Yeah.
If there's not the ability to zig and zag on that,
We'll let
so
you
having some notice would be great, I'm sure for you
Yeah,
as
because
well.
I'm not gonna be here for the 8th or the 7th. When you said now it's gonna be IT.
School.
Meeting is gonna be, and now it's not.
I'm sorry, what?
Do that capital budget for the school committee.
Are you,
What's that?
are we married to?
It's on the ninth of October. Should have voted, I think.
You're gonna go
I
for
know
the
I did.
capital budget for the, on the 9th of October for the schools, is that what you're
That is
saying?
the calendar.
Yeah,
Go
I
with
don't know.
God, go with God, boys,
I don't know.
have a
I
good
go by
time.
Sean.
All right, cool, all right, so just, that's, we'll be getting updates then as to. A couple of people have asked me when we're gonna be meeting. Mary had sent out a whole schedule. There's an amendment to it because Chuck actually read that schedule and we are giving him the Employer of the Week award for that.
Yeah.
And a couple of dates.
Even the corrected one that I got, today, I don't have any responsibility.
You don't?
No, she substituted your name instead of what my name should have been, you put your name.
but that's okay.
But I understood, so I never
That's
said,
okay, as long as you speak Mary, it's good. And, so we're in good shape, we've changed those dates, so everybody,
We're
those
in
are.
great shape.
right now.
Everything's fabulous. We'll see you on the 8th.
Yeah,
Right.
perfect, all right,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay.
so, all those in favor, thank you.
Aye, 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 aye.